Hello and welcome to my channel. This video is going to be about the magnetic field lines tool or Cygnet on ISWA. I guess we'll just start off with the easy stuff. The keys here is showing satellites. They are orbiting the Earth at the equator, and this is the equatorial view. The sun is over to the right. We got our field lines scale. RE is Earth radius, 3,963 miles between each. Well, they don't, these are separated by 5. So basically, if you want to find out the mileage between the Earth and something, say here at -35, it would be 3,963 times 35, and that would be your numbers and mileage. The same with the scale back here. It gives you mileage, miles in width and length, or height, preferably, if you can think of it that way, considering we are looking at equatorial view. Sun's to the right. We got the blue IMF. This is fairly normal. It's missing one. I mean, they should be connected all down. These are representing the planets. This one out here would represent the sun. It would be connected, but it's not. The energy going on has separated them. Now, I talked about field lines, IMF, interplanetary magnetic field lines. These are the blue ones. These are not connected to Earth, which is here, the black and white symbol. This is ignored by the satellites. So you don't, it's just a dead zone. Satellites are orbiting the Earth here at the geosynchronous orbit. Polar cap is the field lines. Think like a magnet, magnetic field lines. Same as these. These are from another magnet. Closed is the red. Basically, they are here because they are other magnets. They would not be here. Closed field lines are used to push against other magnets of the same polarity. So you have a north and a north magnets, putting them together, you'll end up with closed field lines. Timestamp stuff's all up here. The moon is shown here, which is around -60 in its orbit, but you'll never see it on the model. Bow shock, that's our front shield that protects us. We have closed field lines here because this is an energy field and essentially another magnet, so therefore the lines are closed. The energy for these closed field lines is coming from right here. The Earth is drawing in electricity or energy because it's energy at this point until it goes through matter, and then energy through matter becomes electricity, and therefore that's where the power is here. You'll see it on the northern hemisphere, double induction heating. Check out induction magnets, induction heating of metals. That's the same concept, except for it's adding energy into the magnet so that she has the ability to push out, in this case, which is, when you understand electricity through matter, what do you get? You get heat. So when your magnet's heating up, what happens to its land masses and its oceans? They start to warm. And then you're wondering where all your more powerful hurricanes, all the increased earthquakes, increased volcanic activity, major rift zones splitting, new faults forming, cracks in the roadways, sidewalks buckling up, concrete areas buckling up. That's all this. This induction heating, this magnet Earth is heating up. And that's where all that is coming from. It's not global warming. It's not all the other stuff. You've got induction heating right here to do these closed field lines. Now, this signature here is IMF. It's blue. It's not connected to Earth. Well, it shouldn't be there. There's no explanation for it. It's another magnet. It's another magnetic body, a planetary body, a planet or a moon. We do know there is another sun behind us, but this is not its magnetic field because it's just not big enough. You got to think huge, sun here. Sun would just be, and I'll show you here in a second. But in this frame, I started here because this is just a great little frame. It shows a lot of things here. The IMF for the planets and the sun are fairly normal. They're not going crazy, so you can get an idea on those. But now let's get into the things that are not normal and should not be here, but are. Okay? Like I said, this IMF magnetic signatures are unique down to the DNA level. The same as you and I. Now, these field lines are just the same as Earth's polar cap lines. They're identical. And the situation is that's a magnet, this is a magnet, they're each other's field lines, but they're colored differently on this because we're talking about Earth. They're not, sometimes we do see polar cap lines from it, but it's hard to say it is for sure because the pole cap lines will come up completely out of it and then come back around again. So it's like, it could be coming from Earth, but it might not be. Lines change types very quickly as well too. So, and you'll see this as well. These polar cap lines will turn to closed field lines very quickly, and then those closed field lines will turn to IMF. As you look at this tool, you'll see this. And all right, the other interesting thing here is we have our scale, which we just interpret as pressure. I haven't actually been able to find the information on what this exactly is. These measurements, log n is like it's for algorithms, but centimeter. We got centimeters to the third power. We don't know everything about these, and it's not like there's a manual, so we've got to figure out each detail piece as we go. As far as the scale, they will change the scale to pad to make it look not so dramatic, but in turn it does make it dramatic anyways, because then the colors completely change and it's better to just leave it alone, but they don't. So you'll see this slide up and down depending on what's going on. Okay, now we talked about pressure, but as you can see here, we have this zone here. Now the blue is the lower pressure, dark blue is the lowest, but in terms of speaking of pressure, this is in the middle of the scale. Well, the energy is coming from the sun from the right, and it's going around the bow shock. How could this be here? It does have a connection to the back, but the wind's going right to left in the sense of the sun's energy. So, you have this magnetic signature creeping forward that's not connected to Earth at all, which we call blue. A lot of people associate it with blue Kachina, but it's a planet, and it's always IMF. So we just call it blue because it's big and it's always there. And it reaches all the way forward and tries to connect with Earth, but Earth is always pushing away right here. This is why it's pushing this magnet and other magnets. This one just happens to be, this magnet here just happens to be inside the closed field line. So a lot of times you'll see that Earth will push against it and then connect to it as polar cap lines. And then turn around and IMF will wrap in here too, which is not connected. So it's really neat. You'll see areas where we've got all three types just intermingling around one magnet, and it's not even the Earth. It's so neat, to understand this. And scientifically will really help you understand the ferrocell, because that's what this is. This is a giant ferrocell. And it's not a little $20, $30 piece of equipment. This is billions of dollars of satellites out here reading this information. So no matter how old the program is, it's still interpreting, the data is still the same, even though they've got newer satellites doing it. So, and yes, there's ground-based computing. Something has to process the data into a model. So, that's, some people will say, oh, this is outdated and it's ground-based. No, I just explained it. Satellites in space, ground-based is processing the data into a model. So we have the pressure difference here. It should basically, I mean, if it's inside a protective shell, it should essentially all be the same all the way out the back, but it's not. It's higher pressure. So we've got that as an indicator. We've got pole cap lines that are circling around this field. Um, Closed field lines in the area. We've got 2 pole cap lines. Now the other thing is we have this other pole cap line, and it's half of another thing I'm going to talk about here. But you've got this one that's wrapping around the north front. Well, it doesn't necessarily, it's, let's say, in between the bow shock, because I mean our point of view is to this from the side. But anyways, if this had come around this way, it would have created a heart shape, and I have an example of that here that I caught back in February. And pole cap lines are crossing, or essentially, and if you see the other side, it would make a heart, and a lot of times they'll make a heart. But that's basically telling you that there's another indicator that there's another magnet back here somewhere, because what you have here is a Lagrange point. We have them in Earth because of the way Earth interacts with the sun's magnetic field. Creates you got 2 magnets here, so 2 magnets getting in vicinity, you get a Lagrange point and you get closed field lines. Those closed field lines are what keeps that magnetic lock in the Earth in its orbit around the sun. That's what it's doing. That's what they do. It's all magnetics. It's not gravity. It's magnetic fields. And Birkeland currents are feeding these magnets. All right, so back to this. Well, I think I pretty much covered everything here. If this pole cap line would come around, it would give you a Lagrange point, and it would also point to this magnet as well. So it's just another indicator of one of many in this case. So I'm just going to let this roll. I've got it set up for 5 hours again, as usual. Now, here's where I'm talking about. Let's see, there's a better example. See how these IMF lines, now they've all changed and they're all going crazy and interacting. So the model is reading the field and it may change it around. So here's where I think where we're seeing IMF from Ra, aka the blue Kachina, the sun behind us, and here. And we can't quite see, but I'm sure they're looping back around. But if you imagine Earth like pushing like she is now with all these closed field lines, indenting into that field, like pushing against an elastic barrier, and I'm just reaching my arms out, pushing at the same time that you can't see. But just imagine that, or a rocket ship trying to blast away from a huge explosion in space. Well, that's what you're seeing, except it's a magnetic field, and this electron magnet is pushing against that field. So we did have some energy come in from the sun side here, and as a darker color, but it's still, this is nothing compared to what is going on here. This part has nothing to do with what's going on in the back. This was already going on. It's just now reaching Earth. So, but also here you can see the induction heating double-barreled, heavy, so that Earth is able to do this big push. Remember, that's the reason for the earthquakes, the crazy weather, the volcanoes, anything that when you heat a magnet, it's going to increase, it's going to expand, it's going to crack, it's going to heat up. Your volcanoes, or your lava chambers or magma chambers are going to start pushing and moving, just like Long Valley caldera in the United States, California, Nevada border, and Yellowstone in Idaho and in the area are both getting quakes every day, 2 to 3s. It's not all day, every day, but it's a lot of times it can be quite a few stretches and even some swarms. Your super volcanoes are talking. They're saying, hey, they're showing us, they're proving us that this induction heating of a magnet is true. So here you can just see Earth is just pushing like crazy. Now, I forgot to show you this other quick part with the Haar and the Lagrange points. Like I said here, Lagrange point. I was going to show you a scientific Lee video showing the exact same thing and closed field lines in this quick little clip here. It's really neat.
A bit of the light. So there's our two vortex fields.
There's the beginning of your heart.
It's a circle because they're everywhere, but we've isolated one of them. So north to north is a scroll lock.
There's your heart.
Rotation. Whereas north to north and south to south.
There you go. Same polarity.
It's trying to spring up into it, but it can't because these are opposing vortices. And so they cannot intertwine. Whereas this one, they immediately intertwine and pull it right down in. Look at that. It's quite incredible. Okay, so how am I getting this beautiful looking?
Okay. Now you've seen the ferrocell, the same thing. Here you go. Here's a big push. Yep, that's what all that big induction heating was going on for. Was setting up for something big like this. This is that same magnet again, that same planet or moon that's sitting. There you go, like I talked about. Let's just start it back. And there's your Lagrange point too, right there. Boom. Lagrange point. Oh, this is a great little frame setup. Okay, so push. And you could see right here, right there. Right, that's a good. Right here, there's a barrier here. That's that big blue magnetic signature. Energy moves until it hits a barrier. As you'll see, these closed field lines will just form right along it and expand around it. And here's where I was talking about, where Earth pushing and then Earth connecting to it electrically. Perfect. And then, boom, right there. IMF. Got all three. Closed field lines, pole cap, and IMF. Now, where is that IMF line coming from? Because I missed this part. Where is it coming from? I mean, it's completely sealed off here. These are crossing. Whoa. It doesn't come up anywhere. It's standalone inside. Because, no. The only other way through is here. Because this is a barrier. Like a force field. We may have a first. Because I've always found a path out. For like a little connection to sneak in from the back and come in and get all three. But I've never seen an IMF completely closed here. So that means Earth pushed, Earth connected, and then the magnet here, the planet here, pushed back. Standalone, no longer connected, but also connected too. So maybe there's probably more than one there. That's, here you can see right here, it's black, but this is that barrier area I talked about, because that blue signature would come all the way back. I'm going to see if I can get you a frame of that. But right here, this is about as far as it comes forward, because this is, I always just notice this as far as it comes forward. So here you're seeing, wow, that's great. That's awesome. And you look how everything just stayed constant here. Because it's that energy barrier. There, no. You can see there, that's good right there. Usually it could spread out and be quite large, several 60,000, 80,000 miles wide signature. But in this case, it's being compressed because of everything going on here. But you could see it came right up to almost -20. So you'll see these field lines there. It's interacting and going around this barrier, which is just another magnetic signature, because that's another field. I'm probably beating a dead horse right now at this point, but Sorry guys, I'm just excited. This is just one thing that's great about looking at these. You could see all these great events and watch how it changes, and the patterns change as the frequency increases. It's just why I do this. Okay, well, I guess if you guys have any more questions, post them below. I think I've done a good job here. I've gone over the other stuff multiple times in my last video earlier, so if you learn how to move the time and date around and the number of frames and video clips and stuff, it's in watch my video earlier today. Alright, have a good day.